Pegasus Podcast, presented by Night Sports Now. UCF news, views, and a few hot takes. Now, here are your hosts, Bailey Go Knights Adams and Christian Charge On Simmons.
Welcome into episode 282. Be sure you're following us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at @ByCASimmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. You can also email us at PegasusPodcast@ksn@gmail.com. Game week. It's game week. It's game week. Week 0 has happened. Week 1 is this week. Christian, what's up, man?
What's up? Not much.
How you doing?
Excited it's game week, as you can see from my look, unless you're in the audio version. In which case you should know that I'm wearing a football helmet.
Oh, I was gonna say I was gonna say if you are listening to the audio version, I was gonna be like you can guess what Christian is wearing right now. And
I'm wearing a helmet, and for good luck, it is the helmet they wore when they lost to Utah. If you listened to a previous episode after I purchased this helmet for an obscene amount of money, you would know that I wanted to wear it for the podcast as a joke and wasn't sure I could safely get my head into the helmet and decided it was not worth the risk. Like a month after that, I was alone in my apartment one night and decided it was worth the risk, and I tried to get the helmet on and found out I could get it off. Just excited for game week, man. Excited.
Yeah. How long are you gonna keep this on?
I don't really know, to be honest with you. My head is already starting to hurt, but we're going to ride the meme as long as we can, and we'll just see what happens. I also have my cup of coffee that I cannot drink. So
I was laughing during the intro because right before you clicked start, you said you were looking at yourself and you go, I look good in this. I look like a quarterback.
I really hate that you just repeated that.
I want to know why you look like a quarterback over any other position.
I don't know. I just feel like I've always imagined myself as a quarterback, as someone who never played football. And I don't think that's a surprise because I think that's what's true for like 99.9% of people. Also, respectfully, like, you know me and my body. What other position could I come close to playing? I'm punter or like a bad quarterback. Like, those are my options. Do I scream left tackle?
That's fair.
I'm very excited. It's game week, though.
I don't know where to go from here. Yeah, I mean, we're going to get into our game preview. UCF Jacksonville State Thursday night, 7:00, ESPN Plus at the Bounce House. Before that, I had something else to say, and I don't remember what it was. Oh, well. Before that,
I think I know what it was.
No, I'm getting into the topic because I had another bit that I was going to say, and I don't have any clue what it was. But the quarterback issue has been settled for the first, little bit of the Jacksonville State game, because late last week there was, and this is why I'm glad we didn't do a emergency podcast for it, because late last week reports trickled out that Cam Fancher was going to be named UCF starting quarterback. Silence from UCF for the next few days. Obviously, at the beginning of Scott Frost's press conference on Monday, he was asked about a quarterback, and he said, yes, Cam Fancher will be our starter. UCF put up the graphic that said Cam Fancher. It said QB, I think it's like starter or starting.
It said starter for game 1, I believe.
Yeah, under like lower, or the caption said starter for game 1, and then it said starter really big on the graphic, and then right under starter it said versus Jacksonville State. It reminded me of when Penn State did the every Penn State player has appeared in every Super Bowl, and then in literally tiny text it said except for 6, wherever it was.
Except for 5 since 1965.
Yeah.
Was the stat.
Yeah. So yeah, and then that combined with the way Scott Frost talked about Cam Fancher being named the starter made me think this is not final.
This was in all my years covering this team, which, believe it or not, I realized this is going to be my 10th season up in the press box, which I told you when I got credentialed, I said, which is weird. This is my 10th season in the press box, or that 5 of those have been for this podcast already. Both of those seem insane, but yeah. Little self-serving aside there. But anyway, I in all my years, I can't recall such a lukewarm reaction from a coach after naming a starting quarterback for Frost to go out. He said he will be the first. He said something along the lines, I don't want to butcher it, just he will be the first quarterback we play in the first game. And then very quickly said that he said something along the lines of there is the possibility that multiple guys will play and we might even have a plan for that. So I think he's making what this means, I think, is very obvious as the quarterback competition is continuing into the season. And it had become increasingly clear over the last few weeks, as we talked about on 2 podcasts ago, that Fancher was trending for the job. I do think, based on Frost comments and just based on what's out there, I think that when they were this close together, I think that the experience factor was a difference maker there. He has way more playing experience and starting experience than either Jakari or Taven Jackson. And when you're this unsure, it makes sense to at least start there. I think, I'm not saying that it's automatically Cam is going to get benched and not be the guy for the rest of the season, but I think it would be I think it's safe to say that it would be really jumping the gun to assume that this means the competition is settled. I think it's very clear that the competition is going to go on against Jacksonville State and probably against North Carolina A&T and maybe even beyond. And honestly, given where things are at, I'm kind of okay with it. If it's this close, just get him out there in games and let's see what happens.
Yeah, and I think it even got further, even clearer when somebody asked, like, okay, well, what did you see from Cam Fancher to, like, tell you that he's got the job? And Frost started by saying, like, I don't want to just talk too much about just one guy. And, when you name a starter, you're going to get a question about the starter, and it makes sense for you to talk about the starting quarterback and not the other two. But I think two times he said that. He was like, again, I don't want to focus on just, like, the one guy. And so that's not quite the vote of confidence. It's more like, well, we have to start a quarterback on Thursday. Like, somebody has to go out there first, and it's going to be Cam Fancher.
Oh, you don't think it's a vote of confidence when you're asked, you name a starting quarterback or asked a question about that quarterback and answer, I don't really want to talk about him? That's not a vote of confidence. But I really first off, is this a very mild victory lap for us after some people were very annoyed of how can you say that it's Cam Fancher just because he was running with the ones? Crazy guys, how that happens when we do the podcast like that. But I do think that because Frost had another very interesting answer to a question where he was asked about pressure to start guys who are making money. And the other thing you guys understand is Taven Jackson paid a pretty hefty sum of money to come in. And Scott Frost talked about how at UCF he doesn't have the pressure of guys in his ear saying, hey, I paid for this player and that means he should be out there. And to be totally honest, I think there is that to a degree everywhere. And I think there is that to some degree at UCF. But we talked about this on a past podcast, but I am okay with, and I think this is a win for Frost, that what's happening? What?
I'm just looking at you, just talking to me like normal, wearing a full football helmet.
Locked in.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm gonna get really amped at a point. I'm gonna bash my head against the screen. I think it is a big win for Scott Frost that they went out this offseason. They were missing on their quarterback targets. They got in a transfer in Taven Jackson, who at the time we knew wasn't the top target, but it was who was left. They put their quarterback budget toward that. They got into camp, realized he might not be the guy, and they didn't go, well, he's getting the money, so we have to start him, which is what Gus did which is what Gus did last year, which is what you can argue Gus did with JRP, which is what many coaches do all over the country. And I would way rather have the coach who, I get that there's an argument where some people might go, well, they spent that money on Taven and that could have been spent on other things. It's never going to work that way. The portal is largely a crapshoot. I would way rather have the coach who course corrects and goes, we're going to put the guy out there who we think is best versus, well, we have to make sure this makes sense from a financial perspective. That's the right frickin' call. And who knows, maybe Taven emerges over these next couple of games and does take the job, but this is the right way to do things. Don't gift it based on the money. Like, this is what you want to see your coach doing in this situation.
Yeah, I agree. Speaking of money, that's another $1 for you.
My God, I didn't even touch it.
But yeah, no, I mean, I kind of like as a refresher, because I don't know. Obviously, people maybe checked out for the off season. People, maybe didn't listen every week or whatever, and just kind of a refresh of who Cam Fancher even is. 3 years at Marshall, 1 at FAU, started a lot of games, as you mentioned, a lot of experience both places. I can't bring, and again, part of it's because it was very lukewarm. Like, okay, well, here's, this guy who's going to start, but we maybe have a plan in place for another guy to play. So, but also, I just can't really get overly excited about this because of what we've seen him do at his other 2 stops. I mean, he completed 60. He's in his career over 4 years. He's completed 60.7% of his passes for 5,294 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 23 interceptions. He's been sacked 68 times. He's run the ball 331 times for 1,122 yards, averaging 3.4 yards per carry and 8 rushing touchdowns. So he's 6'2", 200. He was a captain last year at FAU. I think the leadership, the experience thing, like you said, won out here. I mean, and we've the very little that we've seen from spring practices that we were able to go to, from media clips from early in practices, seems like he has the best arm. And we'll see if that translates, obviously, because you can have the big arm, you can have all that, but you got to hit your passes. So we'll see. And I think all along it's felt like this was going to extend into weeks 1 and 2.
Well, this has been like I said, I'm still standing by. I know some people are going for the 2022 quarterback competition. I still just feel like when you look at the roadmap, this is one of the most shocking picks because let's not forget that when the offseason first hit, it was, can Dylan Risk hold on to the job? And then it was Dylan Risk versus Taven Jackson. Then spring camp comes around. It goes, maybe it's more Taven Jackson versus Jakari. Then we get to fall, and fall camp starts. And it's like, actually, Cam's in the lead, and now we're here. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm just going to say it. I have a hard time imagining Cam being the starter 3 games from now. And his history, my issue with his history when you lay it out like that is that there are situations where players get better, especially in new situations. There are situations where players get worse. I think with better coaching and a better situation and a better team and a better scheme, players can absolutely rise above things. But there aren't a lot of situations in college football where a guy isn't that good in multiple places over multiple years as a starter, and then suddenly in one of his last years of eligibility just turns it on. Yeah. So I don't know. I also have we even talked about, Bailey, the quote of Charles Huff, who was Marshall's coach at the time, his quote about Cam Fancher. Do you know the quote though?
Oh yeah, we've talked about it off the podcast. You texted it to me.
I didn't know if we'd ever talked about that before, but when Cam Fancher entered the portal to leave Marshall and eventually went to FAU, Charles Huff, the coach, was asked about that, and he said, quote, that he said he wasn't surprised because, quote, there isn't a lot of money for NIL and the fans hate him. The kid has been miserable, which that sucks. But it is just one of these situations where there's a reason when they brought in Cam Fancher, it felt like a depth ad. And truth be told, I think if you truth serum UCF, they probably would tell you at the time they thought it was a depth ad too. But now we're here. He performed well in spring and fall. The fans hate him. You don't hear that often from a coach.
It's also twofold because he's like, there's not a lot of NIL money. So he was insinuating that Fancher deserved and should get some NIL money. And then he was also like, the fans also hate him. You don't get a lot of coaches going, we're poor and our fans suck. That's not a quote that usually gets out there, but yeah. So we'll see. I guess I'm just, and I know we'll talk about this a little bit in the preview part of this podcast, but I guess part of what I'm interested in Frost's comments too is I'm still not sold that Jacksonville State is the opponent. UCF can and should win, but I'm not sold they're the opponent where you can just mess around at quarterback for the game and see what works. I mean, they are an FBS team. They do have some good players. I don't know. I'm a little curious about how exactly that's going to work in game 1. And I think it's weird because he kind of, I remember him pushing back on that idea last week and saying, obviously they aren't going to take anyone lightly. And I believe that. And I believe whatever plan they might have in place to maybe get some other guy reps probably involves either a lead or specific packages. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because like you say, you don't think, or you can't see Fancher being the starter 3 games from now. I laughed when they made the announcement because I don't remember if it was in response to UCF's tweet or if it was somebody else reporting on UCF's tweet, but one of the replies was just a screenshot of a tweet that said, UCF quarterback Brandon Wimbush throws his first touchdown pass as a Knight. And I was just like, I wonder if we're going to get Cam Fancher started QB in week 1. And we look back in 6 years and remember in 2025 when Cam Fancher was the starting quarterback for the first game and immediately gave way like Wimbush did. So I don't know.
I do think what's cool about him winning the job, though, is this is now going to be 6 starting quarterbacks in 14 games for UCF. And I think that's really beautiful.
Oh man, it's not great.
It's not good
great right now.
It's not ideal, but it's a cool stat. But as far as packages and things like that, where you talked about too, that is one thing I wonder about because we've talked about before how Jakari is kind of viewed as one of the leaders on the team and a really good guy and a really accomplished athlete. And I do wonder, Jakari probably more than any of the 3 lends himself to that package role, right? He's just so athletic. I don't know. Part of me just wonders, are we just going to see Jakari no matter what, even if he doesn't end up as the starter
I think games? With as close as the quarterback competition is, I think whatever. I think it's the easiest justification of saying we'll start Cam, and it's the easiest thing to do is to keep Jakari involved because if you say we're starting Jakari, you're not really going to bring Cam or Taven in certain packages, or you're not going to really I don't know. I think it's almost like a window into here's how we can keep a guy who is respected on this team, is a leader, is somebody who, I mean, if you think about the guys on the offense, he's top 4 as far as a guy that you can think he can produce. We know what we're getting from him. And so you have to get him on the field somehow at some point. And so if they didn't want to do it right from the jump and say, he's going to be our guy, then maybe this is the route they took. But I don't know. I'm so, and I guess we've talked about it all off season, but I'm so interested in this Thursday's game because it's just I don't know what to even expect. It's
really anywhere.
So unique from a personnel standpoint and just from a system standpoint, like obviously Frost is back, and I think he's talked about like things being a little different scheme wise than they were last time he was here. Obviously, some adaptations and some changes that he's made from what he's learned along the way. So interested to see what that looks like. Interested to see what Alex Grinch's defense looks like. So this is a fascinating opener for it being UCF Jacksonville State.
There's a case to be made that this is the most unknown UCF team since like the 1979 UCF team that was the first to take a football field. I mean, is it seriously like if you were to rank them, wouldn't this team be second? It's almost entirely new players on both sides of the ball. And a new coach and everything. So I don't know. It's weird. You're right that this is the type of opening that in a typical year, like if this was like year 4 of the Frost era, it's whatever, it's a game to get through. Just don't screw up. Just don't make it closer than it needs to be. Instead, it's like, what the hell's going to happen at almost every single position? And we didn't get a depth chart today, which was a surprise. So even more, Frost said in the next couple days we'll get a depth chart, which
means we'll post this podcast and they'll release it.
Yes, that is the most Gus Malzahn thing he's done. Is we can't release a depth chart on the Monday where all of college football is releasing their depth charts. I'm not sure what advantage they're gaining there. I don't know. But maybe some things haven't been decided. Maybe some players don't know yet if they're going to start. Miles Montgomery, by the way, go listen to the latest UCF Fastcast podcast where Miles Montgomery and Jaden Nixon interviewed Mackenzie Milton. It was an absolutely awesome listen. Highly recommend it. If you're a UCF fan, Milton had tons of stuff in there. You also learn very quickly why he's a good coach just by listening to him and how he talks to them. Miles Montgomery, and part of that did kind of spoil that he's starting, which I guess isn't a huge surprise, but he did ask for advice on what it's like to start for the first time since he'll be doing that soon, which gave that away a little bit. But yeah.
We're sitting next to Jaden Nixon.
Yeah. I mean, is there a position where it matters less than running back who's like out there on the first snap? So it's whatever.
No. That was the other thing before I get to that, the fact that Frost was, other things to talk about other than the quarterback. You mentioned Miles Montgomery. He mentioned, because Miles Montgomery spoke today, Nigel Kelly spoke today, and someone asked about leaders and kind of deciding on captains and stuff. And without straight up saying, we've decided on captains, he's mentioned specifically the two guys who are about to talk. And we kind of, again, those were two of the ones that we picked as our Pegasus Podcast captains. So we're on the right track there. But those are the two guys, Miles and Nigel Leak, that we at least know of, probably going to be in a captainship or a leadership role.
He also, in that conversation, brought up Kelly Lawson, who was another one of our captain picks. Yeah. So we may have accidentally nailed that. Knew before the team. Crazy. But yeah,
and the other one was Rubelt, right?
He mentioned someone who we didn't
know. Who we said.
Yeah, Rubelt was the other one. He did say another name that I didn't commit to memory because it wasn't one of our picks, so I just went, and didn't record it. But there wasn't a name he said. But either way, I don't know. That was just interesting because the game is in 4 days, and he did to some degree imply that not everyone knows if they're starting, and also there might not be team captains yet. So I don't know.
I just know, like, because this is 5:28 p.m. on Monday afternoon or evening. It might get released at 8:00 tonight, or like it might get released. It's going to be like Tuesday morning or something. We're going to miss it by.
Scott Frost already tweeted it, just no one can see it since his account is still private. So that's too bad for us.
Yeah. Anything else on quarterback or anything else Frost said or the lack of a depth chart so far?
My one last thing I'll say on quarterback, that you tell me if I'm wrong. Am I totally out of turn to say that if I'm in the quarterback room, I'm almost wondering if it's a disadvantage to be selected as the starter for game 1? Am I crazy for that notion?
Because it's so close that at some other point they're going to be like, well, what's behind door number 2?
And because it's a season where you're not just going to be cruising to wins and there will be adversity. So it's like being the first guy out there and having been such a close competition and knowing there will be a game where you don't play well or a game where the team is struggling. It's just going to be so easy for the coaches to pull the trigger.
Probably. Because, then also how often do you see, if you're that first guy out there, how often do you see yourself get benched or whatever? They say, we'll see what this other guy has. How often they can go back to you?
Yeah, if that guy plays well, it might be over right there. And if he doesn't play well, there's a third guy who also is basically tied for. So I don't know. In a weird way, it's almost disadvantageous to be the first guy out. So I don't know. But yeah, this has been a weird. Cam Fancher won the battle, but also the battle's still going on. And also, please don't ask me questions about him. It was an interesting way to select a quarterback, and the competition is still very much in play. It seems as obvious.
It was. All right, we'll get to our game preview. UCF Jacksonville State, as I mentioned, 7:00 at the Bounce House. On Thursday night, Jacksonville State, 9-5 last year, 7-1 Conference USA. They won Conference USA. They lost the Cure Bowl and then lost all their players and coaches. Rich Rodriguez, of course, will be UCF will see him in October because he'll be coming to the bounce house with West Virginia. So this is a completely new start for them as well. Before we get into our actual preview, we've got a new segment as part of the game preview. Fact you may not know. I don't know if that we're workshopping the name here. Fact you may not know about Jacksonville State.
We can do better than that being the name for this segment, and I think we will over the season.
We will. We'll figure it out. I didn't talk to you about it at all, and other than I brought up the idea of like, hey, I'm going to look up like a random fact and just say it on the podcast as part of the review.
I feel like fun fact would have gotten the job done, but we can roll with fact.
Everybody does that. Everybody does that. Fun fact.
All right, hit me with the fact.
Everybody says fun fact, and rarely is the fact ever fun.
Is this fact fun?
It's a fact. You might not know it, so the fact you may not know. Jacksonville State's first season was in 1904, but they weren't the Gamecocks, nor were they red and white like they are now. They were blue and gold, and they were the Eagle Owls.
Sounds to me like they downgraded.
The Eagle Owls.
The Eagle Owls.
They changed ahead of the 1947 season.
You know, I'm gonna tap into some of my dad's bird knowledge. My dad's a big bird guy. I was thinking when you said that they like combine two animals. I think there is an owl called an eagle owl.
I imagine that. I figured that would be the case.
I at first thought it was like they were like, we can't pick, so we're gonna be both. But yeah, that kind of feels. At what point in your history you're an eagle owl, which I'm imagining is a pretty cool looking owl. If someone saw an owl and said we got to name that after an eagle, it's got to be a cool looking owl. And to have that be your name, and then like at some point along the road be like, or we could be chickens. I don't know.
Gamecocks is easy. Well, I don't know. Is it? I was gonna say it's easier to market.
Is it?
Eagle Owls is hard to say.
When did they change names? Like in 1920, were they big on
1947?
Or in the 1947, were they big on the marketing?
Yeah. No, but I don't know. Eagle Owls. I also feel like they downgraded. Eagle Owls doesn't roll off the tongue. What did you say? Sorry.
I feel like they downgraded in color too. Blue and gold sounds royal and lovely. What?
Who said it? Blue and gold sounds regal and lovely. Yeah, that's the fact you may not know. Did you know that fact?
I did not know that fact. It also wasn't fun. So I feel like
exactly.
You were right.
So I'm on this.
It was interesting.
Yes. All right. Actual game preview time. Even though I had another fact, I just don't want to do it.
What's the other fact?
Well, we'll talk about them in a second anyway when we get into the actual game preview. But as far as our main storyline for this game, obviously it is First Frost 2, which, the more I think about First Frost 2, should have not been Second Frost.
Well, don't forget they already did a Second Frost in 2017. And
did they call it First Frost again?
No, because they bailed at the last second because then FIU wouldn't let them wear the uniform.
Oh, right.
So it was this awkward thing where the team was in gray, the fans were wearing white, the field was painted white. It had like the white logo on the white end zones and everything, but they didn't really like announce that in any way. Mm-hmm. Man, I got to tell you, the First Frost was so freaking cool. Like because that was also the first game with the new video board. Back then they just had like the dumb little scoreboard. Right. They just got in the big giant video board and it was all set up for pregame. And then like without anyone saying anything in the stadium, it just started to ice over like steadily and then just like totally turned to ice. It was like First Frost. And I remember being there and being like, you know, we just watched 0-12. Graphics were amazing to us. Like we were ready for anything. And I was like, that is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to. I keep forgetting. I'm having a bad. This is week one.
I think we, instead of being First Frost 2, we should call it the Second First Frost.
The second first. Oh, what I was going to say, you somehow just reminded me, is we are now, what is it? We're 3 degrees away from the game day.
It's pissing me off, man. I know it's like, I get it. It's fine. The graphics are cool. It's pissed me off every day. Like, it's weird how for everyone else it's a countdown. And for me, it's just a little like twinge of annoyance in my brain once a day for 10 days.
Just they're elbowing you in like the ribs every day.
Well, what's pissing me off more is like each day it's a little more icy. And I'm like, you're like 20 degrees past when that would have happened. Like, I'm sorry, but whatever. Unless we're operating under Celsius, which is fine.
Yeah.
UCF's a science-based university. Who knows?
So again, the start of the second Frost. Oh my gosh, the start of the second Scott Frost era at UCF. I think the number that we're going to end up going with after it's changed a million times throughout the offseason, according to UCF's game notes, 63 newcomers for UCF this year. Yep. 63 is the number. And this is our first chance, like I mentioned a second ago, our first chance to see what this team looks like, and it's full of unknowns. So it's just almost everything that we see on Thursday will be new information.
Yeah, it's weird to think about. I mean, literally, it's like every single thing how many – I'll be very curious, like especially for the offense, to look at the stat sheet after the game and see how many total yards were produced by players who were here last year. Because unless Miles has a dramatic night, I mean, who's it going to be?
I got to make sure I'm in my seat in time for like when they announce the starting lineups, because I'm going to learn, like, I don't want to get to kickoff and be like, all right, so who's even out there? Well, I don't know. I don't know the numbers. I'm going to have to study all that. But when they announce, because normally they do the player announcements on the video board, and I'm kind of just like, oh, okay, all right, we'll see like who gets the biggest cheers and all that. But like with each new unveiling of the next player, I'm going to be like, oh, okay. Oh, wow, he's starting. Oh, all right. So it's gonna be. I think this might be one of the weirdest football games I've ever had to prepare to watch.
Yeah, I mean, There's still. It's just weird the sheer number of serious things we don't know. Like we have ideas, we hear stuff, whatever. We as of right now genuinely don't know who's starting a wide receiver. Like who's it gonna be?
Yeah.
Who's it gonna be? There's like 80 permutations of guys they could come up with for that. We literally just don't know. DB is still kind of a bit of a mystery at some spots. Like it's wild to be several days out, and I just really don't know who's going to be out there.
And what's pretty funny, like it's less pertinent for us, but what's still kind of funny is that this is the Jacksonville State's in the same spot.
Yeah,
like they have a new coach, they have a bunch of new players, and they're trying to figure things out all the same. And it'll be interesting as far as like what's at stake. Scott Frost looking for his 20th win as UCF's head coach in his first game for UCF since 2017. UCF's looking for its 300th win as a program. I mean,
you missed my favorite one from the game note, actually, from the game notes.
What, that a win would be better than a loss?
No. Well, yeah, but Scott Frost is looking for his 14th straight win as UCF's
coach. Yeah.
I like that one a lot.
Spanning 8 years.
Can I make an announcement really quickly before we go any farther?
Yes.
I got to take the helmet off.
Okay, do it.
It's hurting my head too much.
26 minutes, 43 seconds in.
I tried to make it to a half hour. You know what really started to hurt? Yeah, no, we're fine.
What?
We're all good. You know what really started to hurt? And it was my jawbones. That's gonna stay.
Well, I told you before. I'm not gonna tell you. I'm not gonna say what you said in response, but I told you before that like back years ago, obviously when I was a child and I played football for 5 years, I forgot about how like the first week of practice every year was just like wearing the helmet to get used to wearing a helmet again, because you'd have a headache after every practice. And then you finally get used to it. But
what I love is you said you're not going to repeat what I said in response. I have no recollection of what I said to that. Was it bad?
I mean, yeah, I can't say like two of the words you said. So.
Oh, okay.
But that brought us to a screeching halt.
Anyway, game previews.
So yeah, this is as I mentioned, Jacksonville State, and under a new era under Charles Kelly, he's had a weird story where he was like a former assistant who's been a career assistant. This is the first time he's been a head coach. UCF has a 10-game winning streak in openers, starting with the first Frost in 2016, and a 10-game winning streak on Thursdays. So that's interesting.
There you go.
I just someone read the game notes and it was me.
They're playing so many tough teams on. Actually, they almost lost. Well, I wouldn't say they almost lost one of those, but 2018 space game against Temple was a little contested for a couple quarters there before UCF pulled away.
Has there been any other one that was actually like remotely close?
I don't remember.
They've been bad on Fridays lately.
Fridays have been tough. They are 1-0 on Wednesdays though, so they've got that going for them.
I forgot about that.
SMU in 2022 because of the hurricane. But yeah, I don't. Yeah.
This is again. I don't know why I'm getting into this, but now I'm trying to think of like, was their last Friday win? No, because they played USF on Black Friday in 22. But I was thinking of. Well, they played the Memphis Space game in 21. Yeah. But 20, like they lost to Louisville on a Friday night. Both times they played them. It was 21 and 22. They lost to Utah on Friday night last season. There was another one in there that I missed. Maybe not. But yeah, not good on Fridays. Anyway, this game's on Thursday, and they're really good on Thursdays, apparently. Let's get into the actual game itself. UCF's offense versus Jacksonville State's defense, starting there. Again, with all the unknowns, one part of my brain says run the ball a ton. Just do it. Run. But at the same time, you're kind of looking at Jacksonville State's defense, and they seem to have a stronger front, and they also have a ton of questions in the secondary. And that makes me think kind of have to balance everything, like kind of get the quarterback comfortable and like into a rhythm. So I wouldn't my first thought was like run the ball 55 times, which they still might. Sure. But there's going to have to be some kind of balance out to it.
I'm gonna fight against that point. Let's be Coach Christian for a second. That's why I took my helmet off. I've gone on to my coaching career now.
You're a player coach in this podcast.
Playing days are over. We're here to coach now. Me and Mackenzie Milton, the same basically. Two things on that. The first is, when you actually look at their defense, it's like the farther back you go, the worse they get. It seems like the strength is the D-line. They have a couple returners there who actually were pretty solid last year and who I don't love that UCF has to go up against in our first game where we see what this O-line looks like. Linebacker seems a little more shaky. DB for Jacksonville State is basically just a bunch of transfers, most of whom didn't even really play at their previous stops, including Traquan Fegans from UCF, who's in their depth chart starting a corner. So there's that, which is why I feel like you're going to have to throw the ball. And there's also, if you're really using this game and the next game to figure out who your quarterback is, then you got to air it out at least a little bit. And honestly, I don't know. I texted you earlier and I said, this is not, given Jacksonville State's strengths, I love that the big two question marks are quarterback and wide receiver. Like, that's awesome. But I do feel like you're going to, I don't know. You have to toe the line of obviously goal one above everything, giant gap before anything else is win the game, and whatever game plan they think that will work, they'll do. But I don't know. I just don't think you can safely pull we're going to figure out who the quarterback is during the season, but then not really give any of the quarterbacks an opportunity to prove to you what they can do.
You absolutely can't. And that's why, as I started to think about it more, I was like, well, one, even without looking at the whole, like, this was back when I thought that they were pretty solid on Fancher being the starting quarterback. So I was doing this research on Sunday, and Monday Frost was like, oh, well, we'll kind of see what happens. But I was thinking, like, okay, you got your quarterback, and you do have these two games where you need to get them some of the easy throws, get them into a rhythm. You don't want the first time your chosen quarterback is going to be throwing like meaningful passes and having to make big throws be the North Carolina game. No. You're going to need to get some of those throws in and then kind of get him into a rhythm with whoever they start at wide receiver, as well as, Kylan Fox and Dylan Wade at tight end. So, yeah, I mean, I'm very curious to see what the split's like as far as, because the strength obviously of this team is the running back room. The strength of the offense anyway is the running back room. So I think you probably do see some, a decent chunk of running the football early, but that's going to, I think, make things easier. Once you can start to establish the run a bit, then maybe you kind of open it up and take some shots downfield, especially with Fancher, who we've just said he's got the biggest arm. So we might see some of that. And they've got some receivers that I think can win downfield. We just haven't seen them play before all that much. But I think DJ Black has kind of has the size to win downfield, and then Dwayne Thomas is a guy who's really quick. So we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing and kind of opening it up.
I'm not happy until I see Wade and Charles just moss a guy at some point during this game, but
they'll probably get a penalty.
I mean, to that point, though, of what you just said, as we sit here now, the truth is we're talking all about you got to see if you quarterback. The same applies for wide receiver. It sounds like part of the issue with wide receiver, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, remains to be seen. But there hasn't been a ton of separation. I mean, like, there are tiers of guys, but that's something you have to work out too. And I know we've told the story a million times, and I feel like Mackenzie Milton's the easiest example of it because he was known when he was at UCF of like he wasn't the strongest guy in practice, but then you get him in a game, and he's Mackenzie freaking Milton, one of the most electric players to ever set foot on campus. And it's so true, particularly for this offense against a defense that should be more talented than and should do well against, but it's still not an FCS defense. It's a defense that can provide some challenges. This is the coaching staff's opportunity to learn what you just can't learn in simulated practice. And I think that is just true for so much more than quarterback. And I think it's just every snap is going to be a learning experience. And I think that's a little scary because I don't want to do, at least if you're listening, I don't want to do a total disservice. Like, this isn't one of those games where it's like, UCF physically can't lose. They can screw around and lose this game. Jacksonville State is an FBS team. They have it's a roster reset for them, but they have a history of playing well against Power 4 competition. So like they do have to win the game, but it is, I don't know. It's just such a weird test case game for a lot of these guys of what are we going to see from them? What are we going to see? It's just so different from when it's an FCS opener with a largely established roster, because it's like the coaches are going to be learning as much as we are. I mean, they're taking that information just like we are. It's not just get to UNC like it might have been in a different season.
Yeah. And what's kind of funny is like it's almost a catch-22 with the receivers, because it was like maybe no one has separated themselves because they were cycling through the quarterbacks, trying to figure out who the quarterback's going to be. But at the same time, they're probably cycling through the receivers, so maybe the quarterbacks couldn't get into a rhythm. So it's like having those two things both. I would feel so much better if they had an established set of wide receivers and then they were trying to figure out quarterback, or vice versa. Like if they had a bunch of really good receivers, maybe you got a quarterback who, as long as you get them the ball, it's fine. So having both of those, trying to figure those out on the fly is going to be interesting.
Yeah, 100%. I'm curious. obviously. I have a UCF podcast. I'd like to know what's going to happen in the game, but it is just, I don't know. It's just jarring. I don't know what I'm even looking forward to at this point, because I was going to say I'm looking forward to the North Carolina A&T preview, but I feel like we're going to know marginally more than we do now. Might not even be the same quarterback by the time that game rolls around, but this is just such a weird thought exercise for all of us as a fan base, and I don't look forward to doing this anytime again in the near future, of just the whole team reset. And it's kind of funny because it's weird how I just think of like the different FCS games, and this isn't even an FCS game, but like those early season games against like a lesser opponent. And now it's like, like it's all, you go back to 2018 and like the point of the SC State game was like, can we get Milton enough touchdowns here to like put him in Heisman contention? And this game's more like, what the hell do they have at basically every position on offense?
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question really quickly before we move on to UCF's defense and Jacksonville State's offense. What do you think is the most likely overreaction we're going to have from this game? Is it a quarterback doing something? Is it like a receiver has 3 big catches and because there's going to be something. There's always something where it's such a small sample size. We take one game and we extrapolate it out over how a season's going to play out. I
think you saying the receiver having 3 big catches, like that seems the most likely. Maybe it's just a personal thing, but that seems the most likely for me because I think, was it 2 years in a row where I had Xavier Townsend on the first week of the season? I was like, oh, he's going to be so good this year. Like, this is his breakout year. And then he didn't really do anything else after that. Again, didn't even really play that much for Iowa State the other day.
He had like one target. I was surprised by that. All offseason, they've been acting like he wasn't even out there he was out there a good amount, but not for the whole game. I was surprised by that.
We should have done, maybe for next week, we should have done a segment on, where are they now and whether or not they're listed as starters on their depth chart, because you texted me some today and you were like, this guy who left, 3rd team, this guy who left, not on the depth chart. Like, just no one's starting.
I was X-Ray Alexander
starting at UCF.
X-Ray Alexander, who we were like devastated to lose, is not starting at Washington, where he went for. This is what players have to. There was a really interesting. We're totally derailing it's our podcast. We can derail it. Who cares? Fast forward. There was this really interesting article in The Athletic that I don't remember if we discussed on the podcast, but I know I sent you and I asked you to read it, and it was about how G5 teams are getting creative in trying to keep their players when they don't have the NIL budget to outspend power teams. And I thought it was interesting because a lot of the lessons applied to UCF, because UCF obviously has way more money than a G5 program, but there are still teams that outspend them. And one lesson in there that a lot of the coaches talked about, like Memphis's coach and Sam Houston State's coach, that I thought was interesting, was having to educate players on what the amount of money a school is offering them means. And the example they gave was, I think it was a cornerback who goes to his coach and says, I got to leave to go to this SEC school because they're offering me $150K and you're offering me like $80K. And the coach had to explain to him how to an SEC school, $150K is you're going to be like on the 3rd string or 2nd string, and they're just trying to fill out the room. Like, that looks like big money to you. That is them telling you they do not value you. Or having to go to a guy and go, they already added 6 linemen this offseason, and now they're offering you money. They're clearly just filling out a spot. You're not, and it feels like, I don't know. I wonder how many years it's going to take before players become a little more savvy with that, because it was weird to see depth charts come out today and see guys who would have started for UCF or bare minimum would have contributed for UCF who are buried on depth charts, and they left for money. Yeah. And I don't know. It's just, and listen, maybe for some players, it's just, you got the money. The money is what matters. That could be life-changing money in some circumstances, but I feel like most players want to play and want to put themselves in position to go to the NFL. And I think there's some guys who, by leaving UCF, lost out on that chance for themselves.
It's not just that either. And this is only like one example and it's a little bit different, but you think about like guys that UCF was targeting to bring in the transfer portal. Like the name that comes to mind is Bo Pribula, the former Penn State quarterback who's now at Missouri. They spent a lot of money on him for him to go to Missouri, and Missouri's come out and said, and Drinkwitz said, they're going to play him and this other guy. They're going to play both quarterbacks in the opener. And for a guy who got all that money to go there to still have to kind of fight off another guy in the season opener, like that's, again, comparing that to, if he was in UCF's room right now, I mean, I don't know for sure, but you would think that he would be the guy who would have emerged. But
I also, to be clear, UCF, I remember from the time, like UCF was very competitive in salary for him. A lot of money was offered there. It's not like he would have had to be poor to come play at UCF. He would have made a ton of money. And this, I'm going to say something that might sound potentially deeply privileged. I don't know. Let's just say it and see how it goes. The thing is, when even someone like that, like Bo Pribula, who I think at Missouri, it's been reported he's getting like a little north of $1 million, like maybe like 1.3, 1.4. Like I say a little and it's several $100,000. That's obviously a ton of money, and that is money that changes your life. It's not the type of money where you get to kick back and say, I'm not working for the rest of my life, or I'm set. It's not, that $1 million does not go as far as it used to. And when you compare that to the potential of multi-year earnings, if you start somewhere or getting to the NFL and getting that first contract or a second contract, if you really succeed, like I don't know. Some of these decisions, it's like, yeah, that sounds like a lot of money as a salary, but it's a one-time payment for 1 year of your services. And then it's gone.
Very short-sighted.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm curious, like you said, when will if it'll eventually kind of balance out and the more and more stories and examples coaches do have to, it's not just coaches though. Because a coach obviously is going to try to keep you. And as a player, you might be saying, hey, I'm leaving. And the coach saying like, well, look at this. Like the coach might earnestly be trying to help them make a decision, but they're like, oh, he just wants to keep me. It's more so like parents and, whatever, high school coaches, whoever gets involved in these processes, they need to see how many crazy examples are out there of guys jumping at, this amount of money and then never playing again. And
now we're getting way off the rails, but I just want to call it really quickly. There's one other factor here that you have to include. That's a big role in this, and that's agents. Mm-hmm. And agents are not regulated at the college level, not like they are in the NFL, not like they are through the Players Association and things like that. And unfortunately, it seems like there are a lot of bad characters in that scene right now. And there are agents who charge absurd commissions far above anything you would see at the pro level and don't really care where that player is going as long as they get that cut for that 1 year deal, whatever. I don't know. It's example number 80 of how college football is just a mess right now. I am so very pro players getting paid money. If you've listened to this podcast ever, you know that there is no arguments in the realm of reality for them to not be paid, but you need some kind of guardrails here. As Scott Frost says every time there's a mic in front of him.
I was going to say, Scott Frost, is that you?
I put the helmet on. I became like one of his players. I'm just saying, like, listen up, guys. We need the guardrails. But it's true because it genuinely, obviously, we're here and we do this podcast because we want UCF to succeed. But like the players are people, and I don't ever want to see anyone, even if it's players that we like, kind of jokingly have a grudge against. Like, oh, I hope Castellanos does bad at FSU or whatever. You don't like seeing players make decisions that end up hurting their futures. That sucks. Yeah. No one wants to see that. And hopefully college football can get its crap together a little bit here to have a little bit less of that going forward, whether it benefits UCF or not. It's just something that's got to happen.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was Jacksonville State's defense.
On to UCF's defense versus Jacksonville State's offense. Taking a hard turn back to our game preview. They will be starting quarterback Gavin Wimsatt. He's also a third school guy himself. He started at Rutgers 3 years there, and then was at Kentucky last year. Didn't really play a ton across like the whole all of his stops, but his best year was in 2023. Threw for 1,735 yards, but he had 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, completed 47.8% of his passes, ran for 497 yards and 11 touchdowns. Just last year, he completed 41% of his passes for 287 yards, 3 touchdowns and 4 picks. It was a guy that Scott Frost was asked about today, and he was like, yeah, he can really spin it. Like he can do it to us with his arm and his legs. The guy's never had a season at the college level throwing or completing above 50% of his passes. It's really his playmaking ability is what would scare me the most about him, and UCF not being able to contain him on the ground.
Yeah, I look forward to watching Antoine Jackson pick him off at some point in that game because I know it's coming. But yeah, I mean, like I said, this isn't a quarterback who necessarily terrifies you. He lost his job at Rutgers, so he transferred to Kentucky to compete for the job. He didn't win the job at Kentucky. They used him a little bit kind of like in that Gatewood role, and it didn't work, apparently. I was reading a Kentucky blog about it. Now he's at Jacksonville State. The one thing that scares me, like you just said, is his legs. And I don't know if it's just trauma from or PTSD from – I just feel like – and it's not fair because it wasn't this coaching staff, but it's like it just feels like over the years, how many times have we seen quarterback drop back on UCF, no one's open, he has a clean pocket and just dances around and just goes and picks up 10, 15 yards eventually. And I don't know, I feel like maybe that's, I don't know if we're just UCF fans, that feels like a unique to UCF thing, but it felt like there was a 5-year stretch where UCF was just incapable of stopping that from happening. And I'm feeling jittery about that. That's what I'm going to hate to see. And with this D-line that UCF has, assuming the people start there we expect, since we still don't have a depth chart, I don't feel like that's going to be the case. I really like Lewis Carter and Kelly Lawson. Like I don't see that happening. But until I don't see it happen, I'm afraid it's going to happen.
Until it doesn't happen, you're thinking about, Rocco Beck did it a ton last year in that game.
Yeah. Which Rocco Beck is a little bit of a better quarterback, but the principle stands, and it's just something that you worry about. But the good news is that UCF has one of the most revered, or at least talked about, defensive coordinators in the country, and that is Alex Grinch. So I suspect they will have a good game plan. I just imagine like at halftime, and Alex Grinch is like, he can run. He's like, I watched Frost's press conference, and he said we have to stop him from throwing the ball. I had no idea.
Yeah, but so something confused me, and I read a little bit about it. I can't say I'm an expert on what Jacksonville State's trying to do now, but obviously Rich Rod being gone, they were really heavy on the run game last year, and they brought in Clint Trickett, who seeing that name again was bizarre. He's their offensive coordinator now, and they're bringing in a bit more of a passing attack with pace, as it was something that I read that said that, and I'm judging that up against them deciding to start Wimsett, who seems to be more of a run first guy. And I'm curious to see how that works out for them. But again, I mean, I don't know. They're trying to learn as much as we are in game one. The only thing is they have to come to the bounce house to try to do it, and UCF at least gets to play at home. They've got some playmaking. TCU transfer running back Cam Cook was one of the guys that came in. UCF saw him last year. He was pretty decent. And then the big thing for them is their top returning receiver, Michael Petway, is questionable for the game. I think he wasn't listed on the depth chart. Yeah. And for it being, that came out on Sunday, and 4 days before the game for you to say, like, that guy is questionable and he's not on the, like, it seems like that's trending toward him not playing.
Him not being listed in the depth chart is very weird. And just because if you're listening to this, I'm guessing you're not well-versed in the Jacksonville State offseason. Like, he's the guy they're hanging their hat on. It's like, oh, he's the playmaker who stayed and is the guy who can be a big weapon for us in offense. So that's, if he's not available for some reason, that's a big win for UCF. And they don't have a lot else there at wide receiver. They have Brock Rechsteiner?
Yeah, the son of Scott Steiner, professional wrestling legend.
Okay.
Sure. That was the other fun fact I had that I knew he was going to come up, so I was like, I'll just save it for later.
He's back from last year, 16 catches for 241 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's kind of whatever. They brought in Caleb Coombs, who was fine at FAU last year, but that's kind of it for wide receivers. So that's, that's interesting if he's not going to be available.
Yeah. I don't know. It's especially for what we just said, like, or what I just said with them trying to go a little bit more pass heavy. That's not great to have your guy that you're.
I don't know, man. Are they really going to come in? They're going to go play a Big 12 team on the road with a quarterback who can't throw and missing their top wide receiver, and they're just going to chuck it downfield and see what happens. I don't know.
That's why the more I think about it, the better I feel. Just obviously, I felt better about UCF's defense coming into this season anyway. But it's like that recipe right there. Like, I don't think they can just throw all day with a quarterback who has been inconsistent in the past, down their top receiver. It's like, okay, well, what are they going to do? They can try to lean on the run, and they're going to run right into John Walker and UCF's D line. So I feel good about what this defense can do. Like, only one returning offensive line starter for them too. So like again, this is a very, we've talked about it in the lead up to even this week and in past podcasts. We talked about how they're in a similar spot to UCF, but they're doing it with less money and less talent. Obviously, there's just a disparity there. So that's why you got to think that UCF has it in them to win this game and, be able to learn some things in the process, but also hopefully win this pretty comfortably.
Yeah, this is a weird game to preview, and I feel like I'm almost like tripping over my words a little bit because like I'm trying to toe the line of like real FBS team that we need to preview, but also like I still don't really see a reality where UCF loses this game. I think if I had to leave, and I'll leave it in my score prediction, I think if I had to leave a final note for fans when you look at this and say, well, look at Jacksonville State, they're in the worst conference in FBS. They have all these newcomers. They're missing one of their top guys. They're clearly not good. The only caveat I'd throw in there is how this game ends up closer than you expect, or even is like a catastrophe for UCF is if you're Jacksonville State and you have to go play a Power 4 team right now, you might as well play one that's projected to finish last in their conference and is also trying to learn everything about their team as well. So like, I'm trying to toe the line of like, there is a reality where things go badly here for UCF. I just think that there are a lot more realities where things are fine. I think go ahead.
It's also a nothing to lose game for them. This is their only Power 4 game, and they can throw everything they want to onto the field. So
yeah, and it's just one of those situations where I don't think there is cause to be concerned, but I also think that fans need to not be in apocalypse mode if we get to halftime and UCF's up like 24-14 or something. That feels totally unlikely to me, maybe even likely.
And that's what kind of like it was getting to kind of our final thoughts before the score predictions too. Like, it would make me feel a lot better. Like, I don't think UCF loses this game. Obviously, I think they should win it pretty comfortably. But I think of the two of us, I've been more open to the like, well, what if UCF? Like, what if everything goes wrong and UCF does lose? The thing I'd say is, and it's hard to do when you're running out there with a completely unproven offense and haven't really gelled together yet. But if they can start fast and go up early, I think that'll take everything out of it. But if Jacksonville State hangs around and they're like some wacky play away from making it a real game, that's when you start to get scared. And I don't want us or UCF to be in that position on Thursday where like we're sweating things out late in the third quarter, going into the fourth quarter only up like 7. Like
I'm not in the mood for jitters. I have no appetite for jitters this week. I just want to watch them win the game. I want to watch Cam Fancher and probably Ja'Carri Brown and see what they look like. And
I want Thursday night to be a celebration of Scott Frost is back. UCF has won a game for the first time in a while. We can feel good for now and not, oh my God, what's happening?
I just want to watch the second first Frost, man. That's all I want.
Second first Frost. Of note, UCF favored by, depending on where you're looking at, UCF favored by 18 or 18.5. It's weird because do you want to do score predictions? Because
let's do it.
I didn't do this on purpose. I did look at the line first, and then I was like, what would make sense to me score wise? I put UCF 34, Jacksonville State 16, which is exactly 18 points. I didn't do that on purpose. But yeah, 34 payroll. 34-16 UCF. No, I mean Vegas after the game in Dublin on Saturday.
Brutal.
That's brutal.
If you don't know what we're talking about, Iowa State was at the 1 yard line to score to hit the over and decided to kneel the game out. With
and also there was also a red zone like goal line fumble earlier in the game, right? Anyway,
anyone like it had been pouring the entire day. It was the first game of the season between two like gritty football teams in Ireland. Like betting the over was an insane choice in the first place. But anyway, my score prediction was 35-13, so we're pretty in the line. I think Jacksonville State has a few drives they get points off of. I think UCF does what they need to do to win. I don't think we're going to see anything. I could be wrong. I don't think we're going to see anything super splashy or spectacular from UCF. I don't know if we're necessarily going to come out of that game and go, oh yeah, these guys, we have some playmakers at wide receiver, but I think they're going to do what they need to do. And I'm sure that we are going to do a post-game podcast where we are going to have a lot to dissect about quarterback, which will be very fun.
Yeah. Something I meant to mention at the top of the show, but we'll do it now as we're wrapping up the preview section or everything is we will be live after Thursday night's game. We don't have a time yet because for home games, it's going to be interesting. We're trying this out, so bear with us as we do this. But Thursday night, you've got to do post-game press conferences. We've got to get out. I've got to get out of the stadium. We've got to get back to your place to do the podcast. So it's going to be a late one, and we can't give you a concrete time. I think maybe we'll be able to tweet out at a certain point, like planning to go live at this time. But obviously, if you can't catch us live, it'll still be up on YouTube. It'll be up on everywhere you get podcasts, all that stuff. So just something we want to do.
This is potentially a bad idea because it is going to be like an hour plus after the game ends, and also it's a work night. But like, bear with us. If we're going to do it all season. If you want to hang out for this one, sure, but it'll be probably better for other games. But yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm excited to do a live one. Anyone wants to come hang out? We'll throw your comments up unless you're being mean.
Mean to us.
You can be mean to anybody else, just not us.
Yeah, just don't be mean to us. All right, football news. We will get into it now. Cam Fancher and John Walker were named to the Comeback Player of the Year preseason watch list, and I sent this to you, and I get the John Walker thing. He didn't play last year because he's hurt. Cam Fancher played last year. He just didn't play well.
What is he coming back from?
Maybe they do like that. Almost feels like more of I don't know if they do this. They don't do this at the college level. But that's like almost like a most improved award instead of coming back.
Is it because he like lost the job? I literally, what is he coming back from?
I don't know. It was an interesting
coming back choice. From being bad, coming back from those comments his Marshall coach made about him when he was hitting the board.
Fans hated him. I just hope we don't hate him by the end of Thursday night. Jaden Nixon was named to the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award watch list, which is the award awarded. The award awarded. That was rough. The award awarded annually to the most outstanding offensive player who went to the high school in Texas or plays at a Texas-based university.
All right, I'm cutting you off of news. We're not doing these dumb fake awards anymore.
Well, it happened. Literally all I do for UCF news, most of the time we'll just go to UCF's Twitter timeline and be like, all right, what have they tweeted in the last week? And
awarded annually to the most outstanding offensive player who went to high school in Texas or plays at a Texas-based university is the most goddamn specific award criteria I have ever heard in my life.
You know what's weird is when I first read this, I was like, this is a thing. And then I vaguely remembered this being somebody else was on this list at one point, I think from UCF, or I knew of it for some reason. It's a real thing.
We're going to make an award. We're going to give out once a year. We're going to give out the Pegasus Podcast Award. It's just going to be called the Pegasus Podcast Award. And we're going to come up with some super specific criteria to be eligible for this award. And we'll award it at the end of the season to whoever hits the criteria. I'm not even sure it has to be a player, but we're going to come up with the Pegasus Podcast Award.
I got some candidates in mind already. We'll talk about it.
Okay. I kind of have an idea too. We should discuss this off the air and we'll announce it on our next podcast.
We'll award it heading into week 2. Perfect. The final piece, Mike Sims, Walker, Alex Haynes, and Cornell Green were among the UCF football players who are going to be in the 2025 UCF Hall of Fame class. They're joined by Miriam Metzkes Ochoa from the volleyball team, Dexter Lyons from men's basketball, and Ariel Scott from the track and field team. Ariel Scott, the first ever UCF national champion in track and field. So, well, not just in track and field, the first national champion ever. Yeah. So there was that. We're on to game of the week, which is interesting to us, particularly because we will be at this game. UCF volleyball opening up the season against Chattanooga Friday at 7:00. New era under head coach Matt Botsford, who comes to UCF 9th nationally among D1 coaches in career winning percentage after an 11-year stint at Florida Gulf Coast. He led Florida Gulf Coast to 4 ASUN titles and 20 wins in 9 of the last 10 seasons outside of the COVID season. I don't remember if we really talked about this hire at the time because we don't, cover volleyball too in depth. And I don't think, obviously they weren't in season, so they wouldn't have been in game of the week. But I'm excited about this hire, and I'm hoping that volleyball kind of gets back toward what it had been. He kind of gets adjusted to the Big 12, and we'll be there Friday night. So that'll be fun.
Looking forward to it, even though we had a little bit of a crisis of whether we wanted to go or watch college football. And then I pointed out that we could just watch college football on our phones while being there. So
the thing that I forgot when you told me that is that at 6:00 on Friday, I have a fantasy football draft that I'll be doing on my phone. And it's not just your average run of the mill. For some reason, a group of my friends has decided to do a 32-team league. So we're doing a 32-team fantasy football league. And so I'm going to be doing that draft all night while we're together on Friday night, just so you know. But yeah,
one more volleyball thing before tweet of the week, and this is wildly specific to me, but I sent it to you. And I understand that when teams do rebranding things, there are like transition periods, but volleyball posted a photo of them in all their different uniforms for the year, and they have a white Script Knights jersey and a black Script Knights jersey, and the white Script Knights jersey is the old number font, and the black one is the new number font. And I think I almost had like an aneurysm, like trying to get my brain to understand that that's the situation for them this season.
So that mean they only just got one new uniform set?
No, because there are a couple like Bailey, like half the uniforms in this photo have the new number font and half of them with the old number font. So I guess they got a couple new jerseys this year, which obviously they were going to use the updated number font, which, man, it does look a lot better. It's
so then what? Oh. All right. Well, I don't know.
Just don't wear the old ones. You got multiple new ones.
I was saying, why don't they not wear the old ones? But is that the only white one they have?
No, they have a black one with the new number font and a white one with the new number font. They don't need to wear the old ones. Just don't. Maybe they won't. Well,
why include it in the photo shoot?
To piss me off? I don't know.
That'd be funny. I hope they come out and say that.
My first look at how the new UCF football jerseys look in daylight was a video of them like playing the trumpet and stuff with the band. Like I'm doing what I can on social media to see these uniforms. But
I'll say it for a third time. Tweet of the week.
Tweet of the week. Tweet of the week this week goes to the Barstool USF account. Not an account I would usually want to give any publicity to since it's some dork, but I figured that for this one, we just couldn't help but talk about this tweet because it was so funny for how dumb it was. Barstool UCF tweeted, this is out of nowhere, by the way. This was just like middle of the day.
Barstool USF.
What did I say?
UCF.
USF. I have no qualms with the Barstool UCF account. Here it's run by a great guy. But the Barstool USF account tweeted, one funny thing I've noticed about UCF is that the only thing they have is the fact that they're in the Big 12. They don't win in that conference. They don't make bowls. They don't get high-profile transfers. They become identical to Purdue and Wake Forest. So I just want to say real quick, I don't have a bit. This is what Barstool accounts are for. Be mean to your rival, whatever. The two lines I wanted to call out was one, I really enjoy the long con of waiting for UCF to miss a bowl for the first time in 8 years to drop they don't make bowls. I really enjoyed that one. The plural nature of that word is doing a lot of work for him there in that sentence. And the other thing I want to quickly point out was that they don't win in that conference. Bailey, did you know the last time USF had a winning season in the American, Scott Frost was UCF's head coach the first time?
I did, because you tweeted that, but yes.
Something to think about.
The funny thing, that tweet screams this person just got the Barstool position like as a freshman at USF this year and did not pay attention to anything prior to this year.
Didn't realize that they cheer for a team that has never been good in recent memory.
It was just like, what can I do? What can I do for some engagement?
In their entire football season, they have had 2 seasons where they were good. And that's not even kind of a season where they ranked number 2 for a week and somehow finished unranked and without 10 wins.
Yeah.
They're such a bad program, man. I don't know. And I do miss playing them because it's things like this. They fully think that they're better than UCF this year. And they're not, I promise you, but it's too bad that they just get to think that. That's why I never understood, when UCF was doing the thing USF has never done and been really good at football. And UF and FSU and Miami were like, no, we don't want to play you. I would have wanted to play them to prove a point. And that's where I'm at with USF. Instead, they just get to talk on Twitter as they start 0-3.
Yeah, related but kind of unrelated. I'm kind of annoyed and frustrated that I don't get to watch that game Thursday. Boise State at USF is at 5:30, which will be when we're on campus for the UCF game. So that's one that I would have had interest in watching. But, we've got a whole weekend of college football ahead of us.
The tweets of USF fans being like, we're the best 0-3 team in the country. It's coming because they do Boise State, then they do Florida and Miami.
They believe they're going to win Thursday, by the way.
Oh, really? The delusional fan base is being delusional? Wow. What a shocking development. I never would have guessed that.
Yeah.
Morons.
All right.
Anyway. All right.
I'll see you Thursday. We'll see everybody else back Thursday night live after the game for episode 283. Again,
hey, if it's after the game and you're a USF fan and you're in a bad mood, why don't you come hop in the live and we can talk about UCF's win together? Come join us.
Sure. We'll tweet out at some point after the game when we have an idea of when we'll hopefully be back to go live. But yeah, we'll be back Thursday night live, and again, podcast will be up. YouTube, everywhere you get your podcasts afterwards, like normal anyway. Until then, you can find us on Twitter at BaileyJAdams22, at @ByCA Simmons, at Night Sports Now, and at Pegasus Podcast. Thank you guys so much for being with us, and we will talk to you Thursday.
Bye, everybody.